Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really pulling back the curtain on something pretty complex, technology inside prisons. We're focusing on sources looking at the Alabama Department of Corrections, or ADOC, and how their experience kind of reflects this national pay-for-play system for inmate communication.
Right, pay for play. That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Because you've got this promise of technology helping with education, rehabilitation, family contact, great
Wow.
stuff. But then the sources force us to ask, is it really about rehabilitation, or is it, just a new way to make money off families who often have very little? That's the conflict.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack how places like ADOC try to roll out genuinely good tech for education, while also getting tangled up in these exclusive contracts for communication that end up being incredibly expensive for people. It's like two different stories happening at once. Okay, let's start with the positive side, the ideal. ADOC's personal education devices, the PEDs, they started rolling these out, early 2021? And expanded pretty quickly. It sounded revolutionary for Alabama at the time.
Oh, absolutely. And the ADOC was very clear about their goals. They talked about promoting effective, evidence-based rehabilitation, helping with reentry, reducing recidivism. Commissioner Jeff Dunn actually said it, places rehabilitative, educational, and vocational programming directly into the hands of our inmate population. Something they just couldn't do before in Alabama. Quite a statement.
And the content on these devices wasn't just basic stuff, right? It was pretty comprehensive.
Totally. We're talking K through 12, GED prep, even college courses and vocational training, plus job search tools, personal finance lessons, religious resources, self-help. It's like a whole curriculum on a secure tablet.
And it wasn't just about long-term goals either. These PEDs had immediate benefits, yeah.
Definitely. They were a huge help during the pandemic, filling the gap when in-person classes were limited by COVID. And beyond that, the sources really highlight this. Studies show that this kind of access to education and rehab tools, it's linked to less violence inside prisons. So real potential for safety and growth there.
And we should probably quickly mention security. People always worry about inmates having devices.
Right. Good point. These are very secure. No open internet, no social media, no cameras for photos or video. They're locked down, purpose-built for the environment.
Okay, so here's the part that sounds almost too good to be true from the sources. The cost, or lack thereof.
Yeah, this is key for this specific program, the PEDs. The provider, Securus Technologies, covered all the financial and operational costs. So the ADOC got this advanced educational system with zero initial or ongoing investment from the state budget.
Wait, hang on. Zero cost to the state for all that hardware, all that software, all that educational content.
That's right, which immediately begs the question, how does the company providing it make its money?
Yeah, that's the perfect setup. Because if Securus is giving away the educational side for free, we have to look at where the money is made, and that's communication. The ADOC is actually switching its communication provider to ICSolutions starting August 1st, 2025. This is where families start paying.
Exactly. The free education part is great, but connecting to the outside world, phone calls, video, messages, that's handled by a contractor whose business model is based on generating revenue from those connections. And the costs, well, they're not trivial. Let's break down those rates from the new ICSolutions contract.
Okay, lay it out for us. What are we talking per minute, per message?
So domestic phone calls are set at 8 cents a minute.
Okay.
But remote video visits, which are increasingly important for families, that jumps to 16 cents a minute.
16 cents a minute for video. And digital messages.
Emails or texts are 15 cents per message, and sending a photo, which remember can only be sent inbound to the inmate, costs 30 cents per photo.
Wow. Okay, let's put that in perspective. A single 15-minute video call. That's $2.40.
$2.40 for 15 minutes. If a family tries to do that daily to maintain a strong connection, you're looking at over $70 a month. And remember, most incarcerated people come from low-income backgrounds. This isn't just pocket change, it's a significant financial burden. It really feels like, as the sources suggest, monetizing family bonds.
And that's the real kicker, isn't it? Because all the research, everything we read, says that strong family contact is one of the best predictors for successful reentry. Yet the system makes that vital connection really expensive, potentially undermining the whole rehabilitation goal they started with. So, okay, the costs are high. But maybe, just maybe, you'd pay it if the service was amazing, right? Reliable, easy to use.
Right.
But then we looked at the sources on service quality, specifically for ICSolutions, the Better Business Bureau data. It paints a pretty rough picture.
It really does. First off, they're not BBB accredited, and the sources showed 150 customer complaints in the last 3 years, with 70 of those closed just in the past year. When you dig into what people are complaining about, you see these recurring problems. It's the reality for families trying to use the service.
And what are the main things people are struggling with?
Well, it falls into a few big buckets. First, just basic connection problems. Dropped calls all the time, calls going straight to voicemail even though funds are on the account, video calls that just won't connect or launch properly. Frustrating stuff. Second, major billing issues. People report getting charged even when a transaction fails. The system says failed, but the money's gone. And getting refunds, forget about it quickly. People mention waiting 14 days, sometimes longer, or money just disappearing from the account with no calls made.
So you're paying these high rates, the service often doesn't work, and then getting your money back is another battle. That's adding insult to injury.
Exactly. And the third big area is customer service itself. Users describe it as hard to reach, sometimes rude, often unhelpful. They get told it's their own internet provider's fault or their bandwidth isn't good enough. We even saw some really concerning specifics in the complaints, like one user being told the service was just down for 30 days, which the company denied later, and another really troubling one where a user claimed a supervisor actually called them stupid when they were just trying to understand a billing issue.
A supervisor calling a customer stupid.
Ugh.
That goes beyond bad service. That really speaks to the power dynamic here, doesn't it? If you're the only game in town because of an exclusive contract, there's just no incentive to treat people well. Where else can they possibly go?
And that nails it. That's the core issue. This isn't just an Alabama problem. It's how the whole correctional tech industry tends to work. We're talking big players like GTL, which is now FirePath, Securist, ICSolutions. It brings us back to your earlier question. How can they afford to give the state free educational tablets and infrastructure?
Right. Because that hardware and setup must cost a fortune. So where's the money coming from? How do they recoup that?
It's actually a pretty straightforward, if concerning, business model. Give the state the hardware for free or very cheap because you make your profit by charging for everything else, every interaction, every piece of content. You have a captive audience desperate for connection and some normalcy.
So what kind of things fall under this monetized content?
Oh, pretty much anything beyond the basic free education stuff. E-messaging, definitely. Music downloads, the sources we saw, put the average at about $1.59 some a song. Movies, games. The inmate is the consumer, using money sent by their families to buy digital goods and services at prices that are often, well, significantly marked up.
Which leads us directly to this idea of commission kickbacks. This feels like the real linchpin of the whole system.
It absolutely is. This is where that conflict of interest gets baked right in. Corrections agencies, state prisons, county jails often get a percentage of the revenue generated by these services. It's written into the contract. So this commission structure gives the agency whose job is supposed to be rehabilitation a direct financial incentive to, well, encourage prisoners to use more of these paid services.
We saw a really stark example of this in the Tennessee DOC contract with GTL FirePath, didn't we?
Yes, that was eye-opening. The state gets 5% commission on things like entertainment and video calls, but for phone calls, the commission jumps to nearly 19%. 19% of all phone revenue.
And wasn't there a minimum guarantee, too?
There was a guaranteed minimum payment to the state of over $2.2 million per year. $2,225,000 to be exact. Think about that. The state's budget is directly tied to maximizing revenue from inmate phone calls. It creates a powerful incentive against making communication cheaper or more accessible.
And another detail that stuck out related to messaging fees was this concept of a literacy tax. What's that about?
Yeah, this is a really insidious aspect of some pricing models. Instead of just charging per message, some companies charge based on the time it takes the inmate to compose and read the message per minute. Now, consider that literacy levels are often lower among incarcerated populations. It takes longer to type, longer to read. So if you're a slower reader or typist, you end up paying significantly more just to send the same message. It disproportionately penalizes those with lower literacy.
So the tech brings these high fees, but it also seems to create other problems by replacing older ways of doing things, right? Not just adding services, but taking others away.
That's a huge concern we saw in the sources. Physical mail is a prime example. Incoming paper mail, letters from family, drawings from kids. It's now often scanned off-site by a third party and delivered digitally to the tablets. The vendors say it's for security, to stop contraband like drugs on paper. Okay. But it leads to delays. Sometimes the scans are hard to read. And it completely takes away that human touch, that tangible connection of holding something a loved one sent. And by the way, the vendor charges the prison for that scanning, maybe $1.25 per piece of mail.
And then there are the privacy implications,
Yeah.
which sound vast
Yeah.
because this is all happening on a monitored network.
Fast is the right word. Everything is recorded. Everything is stored. Phone calls, except usually calls with attorneys. Video visits are kept for, say, 90 days or more. All the e-messages, even the content of those stand letters, it all goes into a massive searchable database. And they use keyword alerts. So the system flags certain words or phrases for staff review. This means the surveillance extends beyond the inmate to their family and friends on the outside. Their private communications are being monitored and analyzed.
Okay, one last hidden cost area. Property rights. This one seems really confusing. What happens when a prison switches tech vendors? Like ADOC moving from Securus to ICSolutions, or another state going from JPay to GTL.
Right, this is where people lose out. Inmates often buy digital content, music, games, maybe specific apps using money from their families. But when the facility switches vendors, poof, they often lose access to everything they bought. It's just gone.
But they paid for it. How can that happen?
Well, there's been litigation over this, but courts often side with the vendors or the state. They point to the end-user license agreement, that super long EULA nobody reads. The argument is basically that prisoners don't really own the digital content, they just have a limited license to use it, and they have very few property rights inside. So for you listening, if you send money for your loved one to buy a song or a game, you're essentially renting it, and that rental can disappear the next time the state signs a new contract. That $1.59 song, gone.
Okay, so we have this tension. Free educational tech on one hand, expensive problematic communication tech on the other, driven by these commission deals. Did the sources offer any way out, any alternative model?
Yes, there was discussion of a fundamentally different approach, a secure communication system that's operated by the state itself, potentially using AI for monitoring, rather than a private, profit-driven vendor.
How would that work? What are the benefits?
The main idea is to cut out the middleman and the profit motive. No private company markups, no commission kickbacks influencing decisions. The state would provide communication as a public service, likely at a much lower cost, maybe even just covering operational expenses. And security wouldn't be compromised. You'd use modern AI tools for real-time monitoring, recording, transcribing, analyzing for threats, alerting staff instantly, all the security, none of the perverts financial incentives.
And the key advantage seems to be integrating everything. So inmates could do the required classes, their therapy, their vocational training.
Exactly. All on the same system digitally without worrying about permanent charges racking up. It connects the rehabilitation goals directly with the communication tools instead of having them pull in opposite directions. It aligns the technology with the stated mission of corrections rather than undermining it for profit. Hashtag outro. So when you pull it all together from these sources, technology in prisons really looks like two sides of a coin. It's Janus-faced, On one side, you've got these amazing possibilities like the PEDs in Alabama, really high-tech tools aimed at genuine rehabilitation. But the flip side is this dominant business model for communication, monopolistic, often poor service, and placing huge financial burdens on families whose support is crucial for that rehabilitation to actually work.
It really throws that central tension into sharp relief, doesn't it? When the technology, especially communication, is primarily a vehicle for profit through commissions and exclusive deals, can it ever truly support the goal of successful reentry? Or does the state's need for revenue inevitably get in the way?
And maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. We've seen technology can track, record, analyze, and monetize almost every word, every image shared between an inmate and the outside world. We also know the connection to the outside world is probably the single most critical factor in reducing the chances someone reoffends after release. So what's the real cost to society when that vital lifeline becomes a glitchy, overpriced commodity sold by a monopoly that shares the profits with the state? That's something worth thinking about.